Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Meta Monday analysis with me, Skari, your grateful host. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. We're going to go over some Patreon submitted questions today. We're going to go over the recent event I played this weekend, the Stud or Scrub, or Snotling, sorry, the Stud or Snotling major event that happened this weekend where I took my Drukhari out for a spin. We're going to talk about some questions, whatnot. This is a show that I do normally exclusively for Patreons, so thank you so much for all your ongoing support there. The denizens are the reason I get to do this, so thank you. I appreciate it. Every once in a while, I open up the vaults for everyone so we can hang out and chat. And this is one of those nights because I feel like I've had a weekend of hanging out with a lot of people and having a lot of fun. So thanks for tuning in. As you can tell, my hair is a little off today, which is fine. Hello, Raven, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in. Hello, chat. Hello, everybody who's tuning in, just barely like live. If you're just hanging out, watching this on repeat, or just clicked on the link. Hello, I'm Skari, if you don't know this face. I play Drukhari, and I am now the #1 ITC player in Canada. Yeah, because I finally got myself to a big event. Cheers to that, which is, I'm totally going to wear that on my belt. It's going to be a fantastic belt that will say #1 player in Canada for 30 seconds. Hey, Sam, what's going on? Welcome to the chat as well. Ah, the dark kin indeed. So the way this works, I'm going to go into the Patreon. I post a little thing on every Monday, and it's got a schedule of all the things that are happening this weekend. Because if you didn't know, I do like a Twitch stream with Tanya the War Mistress Skates Thursday, Friday, called Just Put Paint on It. And I put up a bat report usually every week, and I do a whole bunch of stuff. And so the schedule goes up, and you get to ask me a question here on the Patreon page directly or on the Patreon Discord, and then I get to ask them. Today, I'm opening it up for everybody to just discuss. I've got like a cap of like an hour, 15 minutes to an hour and a half, which means that if you have questions in chat, make sure you ask them. Hello, Jason. Hello, Colin. Jason says, excited for the top 8 Bella Core list. That was a very interesting list. You know, we're going to be talking SoCal. We're going to be talking Star Snotling. The Glass Hammer Open happened. There's a whole bunch of action happening, from Sean Naden getting tabled on like half a turn by orcs to, you know, Brad Chester becoming the Prime Minister of Canada, allegedly, because he won the Soda Snotling or something like that. I think that's how that works. So, yes, sit back, relax, enjoy. Get yourself a cup of tea or water, like I have over here. Double fisting here. Let's go. Ah, delicious. Okay. Enough ASMR for all of you? And everybody clicks that download vote. No, what have I done? I have created a monster. Oh, my Burback Skari in the flesh. That's right, Athenos. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us today. Colin, as always, nice of you to stop by. An apple cider with cinnamon stick is what is on your desk tonight. Well, that's exciting. Okay, let's dive into some of these questions. So, Eduardo Paredes asks, hey, Ginger Steve, holy crap, thank you so much for the super chat. Black Templar, how will it set the old world on me? We'll talk about that in a second. That's a great question. Thank you, Ginger Steve. Eduardo asks, generally speaking, which unit size do you think is best for Grotesques, and why? So with the Drukhari, Grotesques are a unit that are very tough, durable. You don't see them very often, simply because Chronos tend to be better, and Incubi tend to be better, and Racks and Witches. There are a whole variety of units in the Drukhari Codex that are just better than Grotesques, like point for point. However, if you are going to run Grotesques, I think they max out at 5 or 6. You used to be able to take like 9 of them in a big unit. That's not the case anymore. So I generally like running them in 5s. Or 3s. Yeah, I'm either running a 3 or a 5. If I'm running a 3 strong, it's because you can put 3 of them in a raider and then like put a character in there as well or something like that. I think they count as what, 3 each in a raider or 2 each in a raider or something. Anyway, you can run little squads of 3, like stuff them in raiders, and I think you can put like 5 models inside as well, so that like 5 Cabalites and 5 Grotesques, or 5 Racks and 5 Grotesques, so they're 11 in total. So when the raider blows up, and if you roll any 1s, you can kill Racks, right? Or Cabalites instead of removing the whole Grotesque models. Or if you want them to walk on foot, 5 is usually the best, in my opinion. Because you can, the coherency is the best for coherency. You can string them out. They have a crazy number of attacks. And I would always recommend you run them as Artists of the Flesh or, anything else. Artists of the Flesh are probably my favorite for the -1 damage, making their 4 wounds with a 5 up Feel No Pain incredibly useful. And, they're what, 40 points each? So it's like 200 points. You get you get 4 times 5, so you get 20 wounds. Whereas like with a Talos, you're running 2 Talos for 220 points, which is 14 wounds. You get 6 more wounds than 2 Talos. You don't get the shooting. You get about the same close combat potential, probably a little more. So it's like more efficient for his points in terms of raw hitting power. But you don't want to go too big, because then you need more. You need lots of little things to play Drukhari effectively. But Eduardo, I hope that answers your question. That was a good question. Going to Ginger Steve, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Black Templar, how will it set the world on meh? I'm assuming that you're not exactly super excited about the Black Templars. Well, I feel like it was released last weekend. This weekend there was like one event, the one in Toronto right now, that had Black Templars as like a choice. But you could take the new Black Templars. However, I didn't see anyone using them. I don't know if anybody did take them, which is, interesting. And I've used them a couple of times, and I am very happy with the dynamics of the list. They're just Marines. There's a thing about all the Marine books. Because Marines are Marines. They're no different. You're playing White Scars or Ultramarines or Black Templars or Dark Angels. They're all, at its core, a straight Marine book that has the same skeleton, and then based on the supplement that you take or the traits that you use, it'll sort of flavor the main course, right? And dreadnoughts that you see in pretty much Marine lists, you're going to see in Black Templar lists. Now, of course, you don't need a librarian to give them an invulnerable save, which makes them better to do that. Save points on characters. They've got some really cool tricks with crazy unkillable like sergeants in a Blade Guard unit or a Terminator Sergeant unit or Terminator unit, for example, making them very durable. They have some of the best litanies for chaplains. They're already popular with Space Marines. They're just better with Black Templars. So it's just another flavor of Marines. They do have some good anti-meta choices right now, which is mainly the mortal wound suppression. So the 5-up Feel No Pain against mortal wounds in the meta helps against Grey Knights, helps against Thousand Sons, helps against Sisters of Battle that do mortals, helps against Dark Eldar that do mortals, helps against, Death Guard that do mortals, helps against other Space Marines that do mortals. All in all, it's a mechanic that you're going to be using a lot. So I don't think it's more meh, it's just more of the same thing. Right? It's just more of the same thing. But Ginger Steve, I hope that answers your question effectively. Diablo Slay 2. Ooh, another super chat, Ginger. Thank you so much. Super excited, really happy. Wanted someone to piss on my chips and tell me I'm wrong. I love what we got, but I want the weaknesses. So you want me to tell you what sucks about Black Templars? Really? Okay. What sucks about Black Templars? Well, they can't take Psychers. Nah, I'm just kidding. That's not a bad thing. I feel like you're going to be spending a lot of points on like the little upgrades, command points, that sort of thing. So essentially, and I think that's one of the biggest meh things about it, is it's just another Space Marine Codex when you look at it that way. So the flavor is you want to be like, you want to go and punch people and like attack things in close combat. However, the army does shooting so well that you sort of want to do a lot of shooting. So it's sort of like a anti-fluff way of playing a very close combat-y army. It also encourages you to take something like Helbrecht or Grimaldus or the Emperor's Champion. But at the end of the day, those characters they're fun, they're great, they have like options, but like Helbrecht is like 160 points. I can take a captain for like 100 points. That's probably going to be just as survivable, or more survivable even, and I can like just customize to what I need him to be, and then spend the extra 60 points on more models or another half a dreadnought or something like that. And then you have Grimaldus, who's got all the things, but he's a chapter master. So I could just take a regular chapter master and then another like chaplain for like 50 points more than what Grimaldus gives you. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. If you wanted more of a like nitty gritty thing. Then again, when I play my Black Templars, I'm going to admit they're going to be mainly a like the way that I have envisioned my Black Templars to be played is, oh my goodness, where's this? The list that I took to like my very first tournament in Canada. It was when I was in my first year of university. And first year of university, I went to my first official tournament in Canada. I was like 18 or something at the time. And man, 18, 34 right now. Holy balls. I feel the years overtaking me. It is a good pain. So my list was Land Raider Crusader, like 5 Assault Terminators with a Chaplain, 2 Razorbacks with dudes in it, a Rhino with dudes in it, and an Emperor's Champion. I think I had a Vindicator, a Dreadnought, and like a Landspeeder. And that was like my 1,500 point list, which is pretty much what we played back then. So my new Black Templar list is literally that that list, but in Primaris form. We're over a third of a century old, Skari. I know, Colin. I know. We're over a third of a century old. I feel a lot wiser than I did 20 years ago. So it's got 2 impulsors to sort of sub out for the Razorbacks with rocket launchers. It has like a repulsor with all the Gatling guns to sub out for the firepower of the Land Raider Crusader. It's not the same, but it's like an homage to that list. It's got Blade Guard veterans instead of the Assault Terminators. It has the Chaplain on a bike instead of the normal Chaplain. An Emperor's Champion, of course, because that's what it was. And it's got like some Eradicators, and you know, it's like it's basically like a mirrored image of my old army list, but in Primaris form. So I'm really pumped, but it's definitely not like what you would consider optimized or competitive, I don't think. But it'll be fun to play, right? And that's when I play my Black Templars, I'm going for that. I've got my Dark Eldar to go and, you know, stomp some people. I'm 38 and hadn't played till the most recent London GT in over 20 years. Wow. Well, that must be intense jumping back into it after 20 years like that. I don't think I've ever taken a break from playing 40k. I think the longest time I took a break was a year when I was in a dance troupe and I toured around Canada and the US and we danced for a year. It was like a service project when I was in between high school and university. And I read a lot of 40k. I think I might have played 1 or 2 games in that year as we would tour around, like go into the local GW store and be like, can I borrow an army for a game? So I got my fix somehow. You can tell Skari has just feasted on the suffering of others. He's glowing. I did feast on the suffering of others. Speaking of the feast, I went 5-1 at the start of Snotling this weekend, and I haven't been to a big event in like 2 years, and it was amazing. And I wish there was another one this weekend because I totally would go. And I dragged my kid along with me, be like, we need to spend time together, watch me play games. The thing that I would like to try, says Diablo 2 Slay. So Diablo Slay says, my local teammates just got back from the Corn Husker Open. Great name for an event. 9 out of 40 players were Grey Knights. I've officially moved my collections to the front of my model shelf, not quite in the list yet. Cool thing about any sort of assassin, you just take an assassin and then you can pay the CP to switch the assassin if you need. I think an assassin is a great versatile tool as long as you learn which assassin is best in which situation and you don't pick a Vindicare. In my opinion. Some people love the Vindicare. I don't like him because he's like miss, reroll, miss. Like one shot wonder. How dare you say that Blood Angel players will riot? They think the gold is the only way. Maybe. Did I say that? I don't remember saying anything of the sort. The thing I would want to try with Templars is using a back chaplain and drop pods to throw assault marines in turn 1, try and trap opponents to their deployment zone while they play a mission. The tricky thing about drop pods is that when people have drop pods, they come out and then you can charge them, tag them, and then you can't shoot anybody. Now, of course, with Black Templars, you probably want to get into combat, so it's not as big of a deal, but it is annoying to have like enemy units immune to like pistols or like you can't shoot at them because they're tagged with a drop pod. And a good opponent will totally use that to their advantage. Hey, Keith, what is going on? Thanks for coming by and saying hello. Okay, let's head on over to some more Patreon questions. Oh, yeah, baby, baby. And of course, if you're listening to this in podcast form, awesome. Not that there is a podcast form to it, but sure, go right ahead. Okay, Fish Eyes asks. 2 questions. Excellent. Number 1. How would you describe the Toronto/Canadian meta? I'm going to describe it as more intense than you think. Especially the Toronto meta. Because when you think of Canada, Canada is one of the largest landmass countries on the planet. Canada is very big. It's enormous. And there's not a lot of people in Canada in relation to the amount of space there is. However, the densely populated areas are around Toronto and like, Quebec and Montreal area. And then BC, right? Like you've got very polarized centers of human density. And then you've got empty space. So you get like all the good players or a high majority of great 40k players live within a 200-mile radius from each other, with an epicenter being like Toronto, and then everything around them. And then like most of the best 40k players in Canada all live in that region. And then, of course, some are all the way in BC. So whenever we have a big event or we run like local RTTs or there's like some sort of thing going on, if the good players want to go get practice, they practice at these local RTTs, which means that more people, like the average player, ends up playing some of the toughest players in Canada. And this has been going on for years because there's just a limited amount of space, which means that then you have local players that are more casual players playing high caliber opponents, and therefore it brings their level of game up. When they want to learn, they get better, they want to improve, and therefore the local player casual player base tends to be higher than most local player bases because they are playing tougher opponents a lot of the time. Which then means that when you go to like an RTT or an event and you expect like easier games or whatever, you're probably not going to get what you expect. Lists are more finely tuned. Technical skills are a lot more honed, like activations in the right order, shooting in the right order, like little things like that that people pick up over time. And I think that that would be one of the best ways to describe the like Toronto meta specifically, but also, the Canadian meta in general, because we have like a smaller concentration of players, and we have like a good number of good players that have to play all the other players, so the other players step up their game to compete with the top players, therefore the entire level of competition raises. And it's really cool, and I really like it. Fish Eyes asks, question number 2: what are your thoughts on player placed terrain versus TO placed terrain? Man, that is a hot topic, I'd want to say. If you want to like hot take, read it here. Skari thinks, well, I really enjoyed player placed terrain because I abused the shit out of it this weekend. I did. I'm not gonna lie. I use it as a tool, but every single opponent that I played also used it as a tool. Like we both had the terrain to place in our deployment zone, and we made sure that the terrain benefited us individually in the best way possible. So that did 2 things. Number 1, it allowed armies that have a hard time against certain armies to have an easier time against them, even though it was a hard game or a hard mission. You could place the terrain to not get alpha struck off the table, for example, especially against an army like Admech or something like that was more traditional. And B, it gives you like a sense of agency, and therefore it's just better in that sense. Now, at the start of Snotling, the terrain was quite heavy. There were a lot of line of sight blockers and whatnot. And Cody, of course, from the Hood Goblin, and Dustin from the Stud or Scrub podcast that co-ran the event, essentially, they they took feedback from players, and they already today starting to adapt the player placed terrain to be a little bit more interactive and not as heavy, because the heaviness of the terrain did sort of skew some of the matchups and stuff like that. So they're constantly going to be fixing it and changing it. But let me know what you think about player placed terrain personally. If you're in chat right now or you're watching live, the question is, do you enjoy it? Would you like to be able to put player placed terrain down? There's restrictions. You can't just put all the terrain down wherever you want. A lot of people forget when putting terrain that there's a 40 millimeter circle, which is the base of the objective, right? You can't put any terrain on that piece. And there's something I had to remind people about. Even Brad Chester. Be like, Brad, you can't put terrain on that objective because it's in the rules. But so within restrictions and things. And but I think it was nice. It was good. I enjoyed it. I loved having that agency, and it just meant that I didn't feel powerless in like tough matchups, like playing against Admech or Orcs, where you can get tabled in a turn, like Sean Naden did yesterday at the final of the SoCal Open. Ooh, that was intense to watch. Now, TO placed terrain is good as well. However, if you're going to do player placed TO placed terrain, it just needs to, I feel it needs to have like the GW style, which is like there's 2 or 3 templates, right? And it changes depending on the mission. So don't just have a single terrain layout that every mission can be played on. Have like hammer and anvil, corners, and then like Dawn of War. And allow the adjusting of the terrain set based on each deployment type and each mission, potentially, so that you don't play on a hammer and anvil deployment with all the ruins like Dawn of War style, so there's literally nothing to hide behind, and it's all big lanes of fire, and then you just get tabled on turn 1. The game is very, very brutal, and things die super fast if they're out in the open. You just pick them up off the table. They're not going to play. You might as well have not deployed them at all, because that's how, like, you just roll a ton of dice and things just die. So you need to be able to hide things so that you don't just get tabled. It's very, very important. But thank you for your questions, Fish Eyes. Really appreciate it. Now back to chat. Black Templars, yeah, drop pods don't move. I cannot wait to hear Skari's thoughts on what Shonen tabling. Freebooters are brutal. Freebooter orcs, like orcs in general, have a fantastic book. I love their codex. It's just you can really play anything. Freebooters and planes and like a bunch of buggies are like overbearingly good. So you're seeing them polarize the orc meta. But orcs have a lot of builds that will surprise you if you're not ready for them. Toronto meta is as cunning and brutal as that orc list at the SoCal final. Yep, I agree. People will bring the mean lists. Keith says, I didn't mind it at all. You could definitely use it to help your game plan and or use it to make scoring secondaries easier. Correct. Colin says, I miss the player place terrain mini game of past editions, but it takes time. It also takes time. It was good, like we had time in the round to do it. It was like 10 minutes off the clock, which is 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Or we just divided it. What was doing was you divide the time of the round, and then while I put a piece down, the clock was on me, pass the clock to my opponent, they put a piece down, pass the clock to me, and it was just back and forth. So from the get-go, it was just back and forth and back and forth, and that was it. Local Raven says, I like player place terrain as it's another way to strategize about the game, but I've screwed over plenty of opponents with terrain placement that's helped me destroy them in games. Correct. And that's the balance, right? You know, is it better to have weaponized terrain, right? Or find out how people are weaponizing terrain as a TO, right? And then put like points in the player pack that disallow specific abuse of the terrain. You know, I know, for example, one of the things that they found out really fast was there were 3 crates, you know, just like containers, like shipping containers as part of the terrain set for each side. And in playtesting at Cody's RTTs, he found that if this was the half of the board, right, the first person to put terrain down would want to put 1 crate, 1 crate, 1 crate, and then push everybody's terrain back because you can't place them within 6 inches of each other. So because of that, instantly it was like, nope, crates have to be touching each other. You can't just like put 3 separate crates everywhere and cause absolute havoc. So it's important to test it. It's important to have an idea and an understanding of what you want to achieve with it, and tweak it. Don't just go, this is fine, this is perfect, doesn't need tweaking. Look at how people are abusing and tweak if you want to be a TO that does that, and like make sure there's a policy in place for that. Imagine having a massive line of sight blocker right in the middle of the table to hide a Lord of Change while it does Psychic Ritual. 100%. It also means that you can like bring fortifications as part of your list. This is a battle fortification. If you just want to play a Webboy game or something. Like there's a whole variety of things that you can do with player place terrain that is more fun than just going, oh, this is the terrain you're stuck with, right? And then going, well, I guess I can't put my bunker down, which is always a bad feeling. Or then people just don't let you, oh, you have a Shrine of Chaos, you want to use it because it's a cool model that you bought. Nope, you're not allowed to bring fortifications because of the terrain, you know? Whatever. Diablo Slay says, secret benefit to player place terrain is the setup is designed to be non-static. TO terrain gets moved so often that it can be different than day 2. 100%. Even play like TO place terrain, you get to a table and you go, this is not symmetrical at all. There's a giant hole the size of a tray filled with models in the corner of this table. And then you have to be like, Judge, do you mind resetting up this table for us? And then that takes time. I actually really enjoy the player place. It's just a lot easier. Keith said, on the flip side, I also have accidentally placed stuff which hindered me by accident. 100%. Or when people go, I guess I have to put this piece of terrain in a corner because I didn't give myself enough room for it, right? And that definitely happened to a couple of people that I saw over the weekend, for sure. Levi Ackerman says, hey, I'm new to 40k and rocking Space Marines. Any ideas on how I should play them? Well, welcome, Levy, to the Meta Monday show. That's a great question. Well, it's more about collecting them. I feel if you want to start playing Space Marines. They're a great army to start. They're tough. They've got good weapons. They've got good armor. I would highly recommend you look at like the aesthetic of an army that you enjoy, like that you think would be cool looking, and just collect models or build models and that you're going to enjoy painting as well. So really go by looks first. You're going to need like pick like a detachment and build it in. So you need like a leader, an HQ choice. You need some troops, so a couple of squads of troops, and then you can have like a couple of specialist stuff. So if you want to just collect it over time, that'd be a great way to start. Get by getting like a start collecting box and building that up, painting it up, and seeing if you enjoy the whole process. And then the next step is playing a game, maybe a small game like a combat patrol, and then from there, adding to your collection and playing bigger games, maybe starting a crusade, or just jumping in 2 feet, finding a net list that's 2,000 points, buying every single model on that net list, building, painting it, and going to an event within the span of a month or so. It's completely up to you. You could go as deep or as shallow as you'd like when it comes to playing 40k. In general, I did the slow grow over 20 years. And so now I'm at a point where I could just play whatever I want, pretty much. But it's taken a while to get to that point. Paul Botello says, what are your thoughts about team tournaments being a better default for competitive play? I'm not advocating for the elimination of singles. Teams just seems to solve a lot of problems. So, Paul, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that, actually. Team tournaments are the most balanced way to play Warhammer 40,000. And it's because every team gets access to one codex for each faction, and every team has access to all of the same things. So it's not like I'm playing Drukhari and you're playing Imperial Guard in a one-on-one, where right now there's a big disparity between Guard and Drukhari in terms of balance of power or tier levels, right? If you disagree with me, what are you doing? Anyway, so in a team event, whether it's a 5 or 3 or an 8-strong team like the national team events at the WTC, you're getting every team can have a Drukhari player, every team can have a Admech player, every team can have an Orc player, every team can have a Grey Knight player, a Space Marine player, right? So what it does is it allows you to craft a strategy within those things, because then you could be like, okay, we have a Drukhari player, so do we want to make him an attacker or defender? We have an Admech player, do we want to make him an attacker or defender? We've got this guy, like, what do we want their role to be? And then you can, in the matchup process, try and outmatch the others. We say, well, our Dark Eldar list trumps their Admech list, and our Admech list trumps any Drukhari list, so we're going to try and get the Admech Drukhari combos, or whatever it is, or Orc Eldar, because we know Orcs destroy Eldar. And so it becomes more of a intricate, woven dance of factions fighting factions, and everybody starts on the same page, and then it comes down to pairings, and then the intricate list building like choices that every single person made to get to that point, right? And I think that's a super important part. And I think it really helps solve a lot of the issues of competitive 40k. 100% it does as well. Okay, quick, gonna hop on over to the Patreon questions again. DMark asks, now that your real space raid has been pressure tested, that's right, how do you feel all its components perform? So my real space raid detachment, I will be making a post on my list now that I've kind of tested it, and a little write-up of the event probably this week that I went to this weekend, where I came in 4th ITC battle scores, but I came in 3rd best overall, which is like, I'm so proud of that. That was my goal. My goal is to podium in overall. I got 3rd best overall. So I'm so pumped. I painted so hard. I played. And the biggest thing is I got my hobby down and everything. It was amazing. I've been working like years for that. So that's great. So it feels amazing. So the components felt great. It's got an Archon, Homunculus, Succubus, Witches, Cabalites, Racks. Those did what they're supposed to do. It has Talos Kronos, 3 Talos, 3 Kronos. Hellions did amazing. Griever Jet Bikes did amazing. A couple of Raiders, couple of Venoms. It's a very straightforward list in a real space raid detachment. The Kronos were the only ones that were okay, could have changed. So in terms of changes to the list, I had 2 units of Cabalite Warriors with blasters. I've taken the blasters off, dropped 1 unit of Cabalites, added in 5 more racks, dropped a couple of upgrades, and then I was able to essentially take my 3 Talos and turn them into 2 units of 2 Talos, and I had enough points to then make 2 Kronos. So now I'm running the exact same list with a few less upgrades, more racks, which are great for troops and holding, 2 units of 2 Talos, and 1 unit of 2 Kronos. And that's it. It's a very small tweak, but I think it really jacks up what my army can do to like 11, especially with the 2 units of 2 Talos, which I think is going to be a massive change to how people approach my list. Because you can't just like focus on one big unit of 3. It's going to be great. I'm really, really excited about that. Speed Racer asks, what are your thoughts on dealing with the freebooter jet and buggies list with Drukhari? Ooh, can we talk about orcs for a second? This is a great sort of segue into talking about what happened to Sean Naden this weekend. By the way, Logan, he was. We did a SoCal breakdown. John Lennon and I were chatting over on the Art of War today. It's a free video, so everybody can go watch it. But Logan, who won with his freebooters, like he had such a run. So congratulations to him for winning, and then playing against one of the best players in the world, Sean Naden, and just like having such an overwhelming victory. And when you win an event 9 rounds, like it's such a mental. And he lost a game against Admec and made it into the top 8 and like the bottom of the bracket, and then was able to win the top 8 and then get to the top. So such resiliency from him, just keeping so focused that he was able to maximize on what his list was capable of, which I think is very, very important. So how my list is very much about hiding as much as possible and then picking my targets and wiping them out. Talos and Kronos are fantastic into the like bazillion shots meta, especially with the -1 damage stuff, as long as there is trees. So if you can get some dense terrain, I feel orcs really don't like dense terrain. Trees and freebooters, as soon as they kill something, it procs them up. But having negative modifiers to hit as an Eldari player, it does make it harder for them to get those freebooter bonuses off. So it's a matter of like hiding, and then like what I found worked really well was isolating small pockets of the orcs and like pouncing on them a little bit at a time. Because if they all can see one thing and focus on it, they're going to kill it. Dead. No chance of survival. So you have to try and get them to split their fire in different places and have a hard time focusing it all on one spot. I think that's key. Hard to do against planes because they just fly everywhere. So they kind of, if you can take them out, they're 12 wounds. They're relatively annoying. There's lots of rockets flying everywhere. There's mortal wounds when you charge and stuff. And then you have to try stop them from scoring primaries. Move blocking, taking objectives away from them. That's probably the most important part if you want to play against them. Stop them from scoring primary points so that they score 0 or 5 primaries every turn and have to clear you off the objectives to get points, where then you can like just do a next wave. And that'll usually be one of the better things that you can do in that matchup. But I hope that answers your question. Winrai says, is it too early to be looking at dog fighters or other anti-aircraft pieces? I think dog fighters, anti-aircraft pieces like Hydra batteries or like Stormhawk interceptors or whatever they are, they tend to be A, way too expensive for what they do, and B, really mediocre at what they're supposed to do in terms of versatility or point for point things. Like, you're much better off thinking outside of the box on how to kill the vehicles. You know, like smites kill planes really fast, unless they're an AdMech plane. You know, or like a big Death Company unit, or anything that has just have stuff that can fly in your list. They can go punch them in close combat. That also really helps. You know, just focus on one and kill it instead of like trying to split your fire and whatever. You know, it's so important to try and do that. Or things that have bonuses to damage, like melt guns, heat lances. You know, other orcs. You know, best way to play against orcs is by playing orcs. But yeah, I think I wouldn't go ahead and like get too big on adding a whole bunch of dedicated anti-aircraft weaponry, because, you know, then you'll play against the 5 dreadnoughts and you have great anti-air, but the dreadnoughts are just going to murder you. So you need a balance. Cynical asks on the Discord, I see a lot of people shifting to Chronos/Talos, like myself. I'm running a unit of 3 Chronos, but I'm considering 2 units of 2. After playing Brad's 2 units of Dark Techno Chronos, if you're running Dark Techno, I think you just need 2 units of 2. I don't think you need more than that. They're great for just cracking open transports, which is pretty much what he did with them. He was just cracking open the little transports that I had, or just killing a tank or 2, because they were just very efficient at that. However, I just love my Talos. So I feel like I would never run, and I'm not running Dark Techno, I'm running Artists of the Flesh. So Talos really, really shine in that capacity as well. But thank you for your question, Cynical. I appreciate it. Okay. Paul says, SkaredCast, my thoughts exactly. Also, Levy, be aware that different Marines play with wildly differently depending on what chapter and models you're using, but also with a second Skari's advice. Excellent. Thank you for being in my corner, Paul. Diablo Slay. Unfortunately, the barrier to entry for teams is really the biggest thing holding it back. Assembling a team, also small game stores can't hold team events because they can't fit 8 teams. Yes, team events are logistically harder than singles. 100%. You know, if you want to run a 16 team RTT, which is like, you know, the same as running 16 people at an RTT, but if you want to run 16 teams of 4 or 5, right? 16 teams of 5, right? That's 150 players or something. Like, it is a massive tournament. No, 50. Yeah, it's like a massive tournament. It's like 80 players or something like that. It's nuts, right? 3, 5, 30, 80 players. Yeah. So, you know, you need 40 tables, which is literally about the amount of size we had for our big major this weekend that we were at, right? So that's 16 teams of 5. So yes, logistically, it's not easy, but doesn't stop it from being the best way to play competitive 40k. Like, you go to Talavera in Spain, which I cannot wait to go to. I'm super pumped about it. They have what, 50 teams of 8 or something like they have a man. They have like 800, like 1,000 people. They have so many people. Okay, just a crazy amount of people at this team event. But that's their main style of event, is team events, right? Alistair Pride. I have a follow-up question to myself about Space Marines. I'm planning to play Crimson Fists, their supplement. So the Imperial Fists, because that's where the Crimson Fist stuff is. I'm looking more competitive. What strategies do you play when playing Space Marines? What strategies do I play? That's a very in-depth question. But it has to do with building a list that is good to score secondaries. It's building a list that is versatile enough to adapt to a variety of different opponents. So be able to deal with anti-tank, anti-infantry, speed and mobility, close combat, shooting, psychic support, or anti-psyker stuff. So you have to have a combination of things. But it's really about scoring points. Because at the end of the day, can your list score primary points and can your list score secondary points? So it's all in the list building stage, which is important. But I hope that helps. Tyrenon. Sorry, I hope I didn't butcher your name totally. Hey, Skari, I have a question. If I take the Marine custom chapter that makes it so that if I'm over 18, I count as having the benefits of light cover to my save. If I get shot by an attack that ignores cover, then you don't get the benefit of your save. Yeah, because you gain the benefit of cover, but if they ignore the benefit of cover, you gain no benefit from the cover. So yes, you would lose your benefit. I'm trying to find it in the FAQ. I can't. Yeah, it wouldn't be in the FAQ. It's just the rule mechanic. If you have a rule that says I gain cover, and then you have a rule that says you ignore cover, doesn't matter how you gained cover, you just don't get it, right? Because this ignores the cover. Alistair says, I have a list in mind and I bought most of the units, mainly what answers to the common sense kind of things, such as where to find other players to play with or strategy. So finding other players normally at a local game store. If you want to find players to play with, you walk into like a hobby shop or a comic store or like a model store or a Games Workshop if you have one locally. And normally the people there will know other people. You can also find Facebook groups or Discord groups of people who hang out and play. Best part thing is, or to go to an event or just walk in, find out when like a Rogue Trader tournament is happening or an event is happening. Go in, talk to the TO or talk to a player or like especially the TO or a judge or something, and they will normally know in that region or in that area when games happen or who you can talk to set up a game, that sort of thing. Because it can be overwhelming to find people to play with. Once you find who to talk to or what chat to get in or whatever, it becomes a lot easier to get involved. Yeah, no problem, Tyrinon. Thank you very much for your question as well. Yeah, Paul and Alistair, if you want to chat as well, of course, if you ever want to get in touch with me, you can always send me an email, SkaredCast@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, the Patreon page. All the links are in the link tree in the description down below. So if you have any questions, feel free, or just leave a comment right here. I tend to answer almost every single comment, unless it's something like Skari is a Doodoo Head who has a terrible narration voice, which is fine. And I say, what is your bridge made out of, you troll? Michael Dawson, cool. I have 2 questions. I like questions. 1, I travel every week and I need help with an army that can travel well. Now, do you travel by plane, by bus, by train, by car? Number 2, I was thinking Thousand Sons or Black Templars. How competitive are they? They're as competitive as the person playing them, in my opinion. I feel like Thousand Sons and Black Templars are very opposite in the way they play. Thousand Sons are probably more complicated to play than Black Templars. However, you can make a list that is very easy to travel with both of those armies. Namely, you travel on a plane. Okay, so you need to get Doodoo Head. How dare they? Says Captain Athena. Yes, they called me a Doodoo Head, and I'm hurt. I'm gonna go on Twitter and complain about it. No, I literally oh man, I feel like it's a game. I'm like, they're like, oh man, that guy's voice is annoying, and I'm like, I know, I have to live with him every day. So funny. So first thing I would say is find yourself a good travel case that fits into the overhead compartment of a plane that you're going to be traveling in often. There's different companies that make different sizes, and then you have to find foam or trays that fit in that. If you want to have, then you find like an elite army of some sort, like Thousand Sons. Like if you did that, you could do like 20,000 Sun Terminators and a bunch of characters, and it'd probably fit in like a little tiny carry-on. that you could like take on any plane because you've got 30 models, whatever. Just don't expect it to be like crazy competitive. I use a Battle Foam 720, and in planes where the bag doesn't fit in the overhead, I take the foam physically out of my bag, and I can put the individual trays in the overhead compartment. Like I literally take the trays out and just fit the trays in, because the trays fit fine, and then you can stack the trays, sideways like this in the overhead compartment, and I can put like my jacket on top or something so it doesn't move around. And then I grab my Battle Foam bag, which is like a box, and I fold it in, and I crush it, and then I put it under my seat at the front, and then that's literally that. And then my backpack goes in there too. So I travel with a big 720 bag as a carry-on on every flight. And then sometimes if it's a bigger plane, the overhead compartment is big enough that you can kind of squeeze the Battle Foam bag in and into the overhead compartment, and then you're fine. So that's what I do. Paul says, Skari, you're a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you for being so open to questions and nurturing all the Warhammer communities that you do. It's more souls for the slaughter. I will fight the Doodoo spreaders. Nameless JT says, I'm 45 minutes behind. I'm sure Vect won't note. I do. I notice everything. Michael Dawson, thank you so much for the super chat. No problem, anytime. Thank you very much for the support. I appreciate it. Paul says, Michael Dawson's magnetize even mid-sized parts. Promise you it'll be worth it. Yeah, magnetizing is also very important. To make your army sort of like edition proof, if you magnetize your stuff, means like Games Workshop will make this weapon or that weapon better, or this weapon more relevant, or that weapon. If you magnetize, you just switch the weapons out instead of having to buy whole new units or prying your units apart with an X-Acto knife, which is all things that I have done. So, yes, Skari, do be a really awesome dude. Enjoy the hit. Yeah, thanks, man. Really appreciate it, Alistair. Time is not a line. No, it's a circle and a squiggly line. And then you make it what you want to. A lot of the armies I see online look like they're painted very well. Painting models is basically the only thing keeping me from starting this hobby, as it is. Is it as hard as it looks? No. It's as hard as you want to make it. And you can put as much or as little time into painting as you want. The key is to be okay with your own mediocrity, which is something that I have learned how to do. Because when you start the hobby, you look at the really cool heavy metal miniatures and stuff. You're not going to replicate that right off the bat unless you're some sort of like whiz kid with genius when it comes to colors and paint and consistency. But you can get an army decently painted very, very simply. And then over time, it's like a muscle. You practice, you'll get better. I paint. I do the just put paint on it, but I've painted for 20 years, and I'm still not the best painter, but it's very zen for me. So it's more than just putting paint on the model. It's about just getting time to listen to music or listen to a podcast or chat with friends on the phone while I'm just painting, or doing like a live stream like I do on Twitch every Thursday, every Friday. It's called Just Put Paint on It. We do it at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch. You can actually check the link tree in the description if you haven't already for all the links of everything I do, which is a fucking lot of stuff. Kingsman. But yeah, time's not a line. Honestly, just try it. Just grab like some contrast paints and a primer and just try it. Like, thin your paints, or get somebody at your local hobby shop to just teach you how to paint a model. And it's a lot simpler than you think, especially with washes and a lot of the technical stuff you can use that makes it so much easier than it used to be to get a decent result on a model that you can be proud of with a very little amount of time. Kinsman asks, are Crusader squads basically objective campers? You could make anything an objective camper, really. I haven't used the big new ones yet, so I have no clue. Magnets did nothing wrong. Correct. And that's a very funny play on Magnus did nothing wrong. Colin, I appreciate it. Tip of the hat to that pun right there. Captain Athena's squiggly, squirmy, timmy, wimmy thing. Exactly. John McAfee. Why is it that everyone's talking about nerfing orcs just because they won one event? Seems unfair to me. Now you know how it feels to be a Dark Eldar player and an Admech player. Everybody wants your head on a stick. Man, it's the ebb and flow of the hot take meta. Urgh, be afraid. You know, they're gonna come take your souls and your babies. You know, what? People will complain about everything. Just play the game that you want to play. Don't be a dick about it. And, and just if you're going to a competitive event, you're going to it knowing you're going to play against competitive people, playing competitive lists. It's not like Sean Naden went to that event not knowing that he was going to run into tough lists that he would have to play against. That's how competition works. The same like with Admech or, Dark Eldar or whatever it is. And if you want to play against your friends and you don't want to take 18 buggies so that you still have friends, then you can do that. Play Crusade or Narrative Mission, whatever. Yeah, so don't listen to the naysayers. Naysayers, meh. I don't waste time in my brain. I literally just whoop out the other side. Diablo says, I had an opponent with hasty, blotchy paint literally crushed up Doritos on his base of GC once. Just putting paint and trying to enjoy it will get you far. Yeah, like, if you're like, okay, crushed up Doritos on the base and stuff, I feel like that was more of a troll move than anything. If it was really like a thematic choice for basing, maybe he was doing like a a neon art, like, expression of today's like gluttonous society or something. Who knows? Like, all the power to you. It's art. It's literal art. So as long as it's not dangerous, I guess, or something like that. Yeah. If I learned anything from my master's in education, says Paul, I can tell you that literally every human can improve their ability in anything if they work enough at it. And that's the thing, when they say practice makes perfect, that's not exactly true. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? You can practice something perfectly bad and then learn how to do something bad very, very well if you practice it bad. So if you want to learn how to do something the right way or properly, perfect practice makes perfect. So practice, but also make sure you're getting advice from somebody who knows what they're doing. If you want to learn tricks and parts of the trade that are going to improve what you do, right? And that's my recommendation. If you want to practice painting, just reach out to one of the people on Instagram that literally paints all the time and that puts crazy models and go, hey, how did you do that green? Or do you have like a video I could watch? Or, literally YouTube. We're on the format right now. You can Google how to paint blue or whatever. And they'll literally be like for beginners, put it in. There'll be like a blue tutorial for beginners. You know how many times I've watched Duncan paint something like terrain, especially where I can be like, ooh, I'm going to get those colors. And I'm going to literally follow word by word what he said to do, which I did with the big Cities of Death, like plastic table squares, the GW posted. I did start of COVID, like, lockdown. I did a whole stream where it was just me chatting to the chat, painting that table, the exact recipe that Duncan used on the GW, like how to paint the Citadel Realm board or whatever. And it was an overwhelming project, but little by little, I got it done. RPG Luminary says, congrats on your high finish this weekend. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was so fun. Losing to number one in the world is a good loss. So very confident, considering he's been going to events. Like Brad's been going to an event every month forever. And I literally have gone to 3 RTTs and this major. So pretty good, if you ask me. As in, I just need more practice. Alistair says, hey, I got another question. What are your thoughts about the Adeptus Custodes? I'm looking into them for the time being. I want to hear the thoughts of other people. They're an elite army. Don't need a lot of models. They score well if you don't know how to play them. However, they do rely a lot on Forge World, which is a resin company. So those models are a little bit more expensive and harder to work with as a beginner. However, they're a really cool army, and they're bound to get a codex soon at some point. So you can either wait for the new codex and then collect them, or collect them and then hope that the choices you made vibe well with the new codex. That player just didn't know until the last minute there was a basing requirement for the GT. Do not credit that man. That was a base. Okay, so that's the story. It was more out of pure necessity to have some sort of basing material, and nobody had flock, so he had to crush Doritos to make. How do I know that your models have gone to the ranch? The bases. So funny. Listen to Skari. Learn as much as you can before you even buy a brush. Well, put paint on it. Like, honestly, just put paint on it is the philosophy I live by. Just put paint on it. Stop worrying about it. Just put paint on it. Legitimately. RPG Luminary question. Do you think the new Octaris rules for Tyranids is enough to shake up the meta? Yes. Quick answer. Especially with people like Tyler, Alex, Dustin, who are like crazy, like Tyranid Forces of the Hive Mind players. They're going to grab and squeeze the juices out of those rules. 100%. Blue Cho says, apparently the Custodes Codex comes out later this year. Cool. That'd be really cool if it did. Saber, edible 40k coming soon. Eat your model when it dies. Now that would be something to see. So on that note, we're going to call it a night. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. This has been another fantastic Meta Monday Ask Me Anything Q&A. A huge shout out to all the channel Patreons. Thank you so much, the denizens of the Dark City, who join me in the Spire, where I get all of these questions, and I do this for you every single week. And of course, this Friday coming up, we're going to do the list crunch as we do every Friday, where you get to submit an army list, and I get to review it live and give you my thoughts and help you build and craft and develop your list into a fighting machine, which has been really fun. So, of course, that's for Patreons as well. Other than that, that's it. Thanks so much, everybody. What's the Discord server code? It is a Patreon Discord server code, because the Discord is for Patreon only. If you are a Patreon, send me a message if you can't find the link to link up the Patreon in the Discord, and I'll help you, Alistair, with that as well. No problem. Everybody is amazing. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more awesome content on Mini Wargaming. I've got the huge, mega, massive narrative campaign that I've been doing with Matt, The Death of a Chapter, Fire to Ash, which has been really fun. There's 4 more episodes. The first 2 were posted up on Mini Wargaming and the Patreon as well, both the Vault and the normal video. Then we've got, I filmed a 40k video. I filmed an AOS video, should be up later this week. I'm filming 40k tomorrow and the day after with more guests. So you'll be able to see any Vault videos on the Patreon page, as well as Mini Wargaming Vault, as well as all the stuff that I'm going to be doing with them. So get excited. It's going to be amazing. So, really appreciate all your time. Thanks for the chats. Thanks for everybody in chat. You're all amazing. Keep it up, and you're all awesome. Other than that, I've been Skari, your grateful host. Sign off until next time. Skari out. The Dark Kin. Bye, everybody.